Soul Retreat, Time is Infinite and the Date is Infinite. Chapter 3, Doctor Visit. Sometimes the mind travels, which led me to a word today that caught me off guard. The word was celibate, and I got a chuckle out of it when I stumbled into that word, just because I always had a impression that that word meant sex. It was based off of just sex, and I'm just like, I had to like roll my eyes in my head just because I have not been sexually active. So like, that word. But I got a chuckle on top of that just because I got into an energy of wanting to text myself. I have a habit of texting myself, just saying, "Oh my God, I didn't know that I was celibate." But within me going to grab my phone, the energy stopped me, and I continued to read the definition of it, as into what that dictionary was given the word of celibate as, and it spoke as into unmarried, and it stopped me within my thought process because one, I was already just stuck by the word, like, but then to realize it was based off of being unmarried. I was like, oh my God, like out of my whole 32 years of being here, I never heard that word referenced in a marriage form. But as I continued to read the word, it spoke of people who are unmarried or people who don't plan on being married. They don't ever plan on getting married. They operate off a celibate aspect. And it spoke of the Roman Catholic priests. And I was like, oh my God. It really had me stop and think. So I went and looked up on YouTube a Roman Catholic priest. And I stumbled across one. And something that stood out to me that he said was, never go into battle on your own. And I was like, oh my God, that's so intriguing because I heard that metaphor before, but I never really thought about it being connected in a marriage form, if that makes sense. He gave another example as into when two or more people are joined together, that the Lord is there, there's life there. And I was like, oh my God, like I feel like a whole epiphany had exploded in my head just because I never thought about it in that form of a way. And I'm an overthinker to the fullest level. So it led me to think about marriage, as I'm always in marriage energy. And people who get divorced in that energy, how do they still cope knowing that you're connected to somebody in a oneness aspect? Which led me to think about vows, the words that you say into death do us part. And I thought about the death part, even being reborn again here on earth. You have to die. Something has to die off for you to be reborn again. And I thought about in the same form as into maybe it was a season. Something else got bloomed within that process. People do grow. And it just was like, oh my God, I never thought about that aspect. So it's so intriguing to me. It's just like a job or school. Like, things do end, but in the actual marriage, it is not ever supposed to end. That's why the majority of my day, my mind has been stuck on the marriage aspect and people who separate themselves within there, knowing that they have a oneness. I know people get married for beneficial reasons when it comes to the kingdom. That's why they don't ever get in there. That's why people look at marriage like it's a joke. But literally, you're supposed to operate on a telepathic aspect. Um, you gotta bear with me in this aspect, because the mind be traveling, yo. You gotta bear with me. So sometimes things be scrambled, but it all balance out to be the same aspect. But within that process, with them being separate, it's like us. It's still a mere aspect. Like, do you still not feel them? Like y'all still together? It make me. The only reference I can give in this aspect is a widow. I always say I operate like a widow. Um, and they still sense their partner like they still there. They still smell them. They feel like their presence are still here. But for me, it's different aspect, because a widow, your spouse is dead. It's not because y'all just decided to get divorced while y'all both physically still here. I think that's where my mind has been stuck at, because like y'all both are physically still here, but you're connected, but you're choosing not to be together. How is that possible? Um, but I kept thinking into it, because it's like I do understand that each person is already one. Even how I spoke about how the priest said when there's one or two. No, why do I keep saying one? It's a reason why I keep saying one, and it's going with what I'm about to say. I said, why do I keep saying one? It's two. When two or more people are gathered together, the Lord is there. Everything is life, you know. But on your own, before you even get into that, you already won. You already have life with you. You just have a companion to do it with. You're not doing that battle by yourself. But for me, I think in that aspect, there's another level that married people get. Because for believers, we're all in the same kingdom. I realize I can connect with multiple people airwavely, um, which made me look at marriage in a different aspect. It's like, I understand why some people who don't believe in marriage be like, it's not that important, it's just a piece of paper, you know. I can understand that because I have that connection, but it's a bigger purpose that comes in it when it comes to marriage that seem to keep not being recognized, because most people go into it for the wrong reason. That's why I really get inspired by married people, honestly. I like hearing their stories. That's why I have a hard time when I hear people who's married and they say they can't communicate honestly with their partner. It's weird to me. It's like, how is that possible? How did y'all even get into this if you cannot be straightforward with them? That you skip step A of friendship. You should be able to tell your friend anything, yo. But even in that aspect, it's a lesson aspect that people dismiss and they just think it's irrelevant. Um, but I'll say I get inspired by married people a lot, but I don't ever hear them say they have a spiritual connection with their partner to even be able to get to the kingdom. Like, y'all can't communicate from a distance? How is that? How? I don't mean on the phone, I mean airwavely. Or just see signs of them where y'all are communicating. That's what has inspired me to get married. I always knew I'm supposed to be married. I feel like I don't know if I should word it in that form of a way. I'm about to say overdue for marriage, but I had a lot of learning to do. I'm still learning, honestly. Um, I get myself shook. My mind is thinking, but what is my mind thinking about? My mind is just thinking, because I want a baby. I've been on babycrave.com mode, but even how I started off, I'm not even sexually active, and I'm not even looking metaphorically. I feel like my partner would find me. Like, we would run right into each other. I really, really believe it. There's no way we wouldn't be on the same journey of a path to run into each other. And that gets people, and even myself sometimes, just because people say you just can't sit there and just expect something to fall on your lap. Faith does it all the freaking time for me, okay? I, I naturally operate like a Buddha or a statue or water. Like, I really believe in the art of flow. I don't force anything, but everything always flows the way it's supposed to be. But I feel like my mind is wandering, but that's important. Um, the marriage part and the oneness. I'm wanting to learn more in that aspect. As into people who separated. Did you ever have that connection? That's the main circle of where my mind is stuck at. As into, did you ever have that connection where y'all able to communicate, not being close together? Because it's like once you get married, you go into the kingdom. It's like the sky is the limit. There's no limit to what y'all can do. Y'all can communicate through people, through movies, through books, like. But if you don't have that type of faith or commitment, then of course you would. And if you can't even be honest with your partner, then you're definitely not going to make it to that level. And most people, I realize, don't like to be honest with each other. And I'm not even thinking on the marriage aspect. I'm just thinking a regular person who people think is irrelevant. Like, I don't even know you, you know. So I just thought that was intriguing of a concept. But even for myself, I have been connected with somebody who brought me this level of awareness that I have to learn to distance myself from. Like, still function on, still connected to them. But I feel like I learned to cope in that area just because I always been capable of doing it on my own. I just know I'm not meant to do it on my own. I think that's what gets me. And knowing that just how the kingdom operate is just, I know, because Spirit keep telling me over and over and over, you know, you're supposed to be married, not to be sexually active, having babies and things like that outside of marriage. Oh, pardon me, but there's other reasons that's handy before you even get into what I'm talking about. My mind is drifting. My mind, when I speak like that, it start analyzing on what I just sat there and said. At least at the moment, that's how it is. But that's what I just said is basically based off of fixing generational cycles before you understand what's happening. Because things repeat over and over and over and over in a trauma form of a way. But just how I sat there and said about the oneness that's supposed to be there, you know, first come love. You have to have this part first. Which it's clear, everything just flows so beautifully. You can be yourself, you know. It's gorgeous. It's love. It's love. When you can be yourself, it's a love. It's love, trust me. It's not that infatuation stuff that would drift off. Material things, they drift off. You know, you get born or whatever, however it go. It don't last. It's not permanent. That's why a lot of people get divorced. But love, oh, it is permanent. It's stand.com. Then comes marriage. Then you make that connection. It's something in there, in that aspect. I feel like I'm having a hard time explaining it at the moment, which is intriguing. But it's like that oneness, because this is two people separately. One, y'all both are one already. Or at least that's how it's supposed to be. That's how it's supposed to be. Then you come together to a whole nother level of oneness. And that's where it's like literally stuck. In those vows, as to death do us part. Nothing's ever going to do you apart. That's where I'm stuck at. Nothing will ever do you apart. Nothing will ever do you apart. And that's part of generational cycles repeating because people didn't understand that part. Some people are really still connected to people. And it will never stop. I hate to joke, it sounds crazy, but it's true. My translation's been saying this for a while. As into, you have to have those conversations with your spouse while you here. As into, if something happened to me, this is if they die or something. Not, I have a hard time. I'm still learning the part with people being here, their physical bodies still being here, and they get separated, and they are really in that oneness. I wonder how that's possible. I wonder how it's possible. As I just explained, I understand you are one and whole by yourself. I understand it. I operate that way, and I'm still connected. But literally, to think y'all not supposed to be together is different to me. Marriage to me, it's a different platform for me. It's different than this basic connection that I keep speaking of. When it's just, I can communicate. It's how you're supposed to be. It's a step up, if that makes sense. It's intriguing my mind thinking it's like a dictatorship, but not in a scary form of a way. It's just that's the step above. This is the kingdom. I give myself chuggles, Jesus. I swear to God, I do. But seriously, it's that type of energy. But as I was saying, I understand being whole and one on your own. I fully understand that concept. But that literally coming together and those vows of to death do us part. Well, I said that already. For those ones, yeah, it must have been a season. Something changed. Whether they evolved or they realized this just ain't it. That happened. They call that a tower moment in my cards. It fell apart. It was not built right, or this is meant to learn something like a classroom. Like you were in school and then graduation day. But some people really like school and they don't ever want to leave school. They even go back and make trips, which that's good. If you still got a good relationship with that person, that's awesome. But I mean for the ones that's literally stuck like in a devastation form, because you still are connected to that person. How do you move on knowing that you're still connected to somebody else? It's a little intriguing to me. I've been in that energy, and it's just like, it's a guilt feeling. It's like you're cheating, but y'all not together. But that's the only person you freaking think about. It's intriguing to me. I don't know how to explain it no more than that, honestly. I feel like it's something else I wanted to say. I think I said it all already.